It's just my OCD playing out, or I've got OCD. As a psychiatrist, anytime I hear anyone say this, my mind begins to wander, and very soon you would understand why this happens to me. Just like me, I'm sure that you've heard a lot of people say, oh, it's just my OCD playing up, or it's just my OCD acting up, it's my OCD this, I've got OCD. Many people even think that it is a thing of pride. However, this OCD doesn't really refer to what it truly means, or is it just a character trait that people are trying to pass across? Shortly, you'll find out what the difference is. Hi guys, my name is Omotola, and today I'll be dishing out some mental health content. So in the category of people that say it's just my OCD playing up, it's time to change your lingua. Because you're nitpicky or because you are a perfectionist doesn't make you have OCD. In fact, what OCD means is Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. And for anything to be a disorder, it means that it will affect your functioning. And trust me, if you've truly had OCD, you would know not to joke around with terms. What many people refer to, however, when they say they have OCD is what we call Obsessive Compulsive Personality Disorder traits. So it could be the traits. For example, you're a perfectionist. You like things to be aligned. You like things to be organized. You like things in a particular way. You like to be very neat. When you come to your house, everything is all spick and span. No worries, which it could be a good thing. However, having OCD, which is Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, is a different ballgame entirely. What does OCD really mean? And I've said two things, they might sound confusing, but let's focus on one at a time. Obsessions are thoughts. It could be thoughts, it could be images, it could be doubts, it could be you thinking about things over and over again that keep coming to one's mind over and over and over again. And most times, these thoughts are recognized as one's own thoughts, but they are very distressing. So unlike people that have the traits of the personality, people that have OCD usually find their thoughts very distressing because those thoughts are usually violent or aggressive. For example, someone may think of hurting another person or have violent thoughts against a particular thing, and these thoughts come over and over again. And trust me, such persons are usually the exact opposite of such thoughts. So for example, someone that is very peaceful, someone that likes to pursue peace would certainly start having thoughts of violence towards something else or towards someone else. So it becomes so distressing to them. And the fact that it is their own thoughts even makes it more distressing. And the more they try to push away those thoughts from their mind, the more those thoughts keep coming over and over and over again. So again, I ask, do you still have OCD? I doubt. But for as many people that are just more curious about this, I'm here to talk more about it. So those are what obsessions are. And now, what are compulsions? Compulsions are things that people do to relieve their obsessions. For example, so you have this thought of doing something, or maybe some people have thoughts of being contaminated. That's a very common type of obsession. And in order to prevent that, if they find that they keep cleaning and cleaning things over and over again, they might even resort to hand washing over and over again. They might resort to checking, making sure everything is all clean, everything is okay, and they never really get satisfied with the state of things, no matter how clean those things are. That's just an example. Some other people also experience things like images in their mind. So it could be different images of maybe them doing something horrible or something bad happening, and it could really be distressing for anyone that has ever gone through it. And most times they try to do other things to counter. Those are the compulsions. So they might do things like maybe praying or repeating certain words just to try to undo whatever thoughts that they're having, albeit unsuccessfully most times. So why am I talking about this condition? I'm talking about it because for many people, I always say that psychiatric conditions, mental health issues could happen in 1 in every 4 individuals. So obsessional symptoms can happen in anyone. It can happen in someone that is depressed. It can happen as an anxiety disorder. In my previous video, I spoke about anxiety, and OCD is an example of an anxiety disorder. It can also happen in the context of psychosis, and it can also happen under very stressful conditions. So this is why this particular topic is important. So why would somebody have OCD? Sounds like it's very serious. Yes, there are different reasons why people come down with different mental health challenges, and one of the reasons why someone may experience any mental health issue would be that they're prone to it genetically, or they're undergoing some form of stressful situation, or there is no explanation to it. And these three conditions also apply to OCD. But for many people that I have seen in my experience, there's usually a stressor. So it could be maybe childbirth, it could be a change of situation or change of circumstances that would lead someone to having OCD. I hope we're following so far. So I'm not going to be going into the nitty-gritty of every single example, but just know that there are usually two parts. The thought, that's the obsessional part. So it could be thoughts, it could be images, it could just be doubt. Have I locked the door? Have I not locked the door? Have I turned off the hub? Have I not turned off the hub? And it could be even images of things coming to mind. It could be certain phobias, like extreme fear of a certain situation. And it could even be sexual themes. And I know that that could also be very distressing to people. Or it could be religious themes. It's a very wide range of things. But most times, those thoughts are your own thoughts, but they don't agree with your personality. For example, a deeply religious person may begin to have maybe some thoughts that are against their religious beliefs, yeah, and it could be very, very distressing. And the more you try to resist, the more these thoughts come. So there's always that fear that these thoughts will come even when they are not even coming. So you can see how complex it becomes. Now, while the compulsions, again, there are things that people try to do to undo those thoughts, and they feel like if they don't do those compulsions, those thoughts will come to pass. And I've already discussed about the things that could lead to OCD. And of course, not to mention that if one has had anxiety disorders in the past or symptoms of OCD, then it could always happen. But as a psychiatrist, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. So because one is experiencing these symptoms, it doesn't mean that that's the end of the road, and it doesn't mean that it is not treatable. Yes, it is treatable. And for OCD, there are different ways that you can treat. There are therapies and there are medications. So in terms of therapy, there is a therapy called exposure and response prevention. And in this therapy, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty, but what it essentially means is that people are exposed to their fears. Yes, it sounds scary and it sounds counterintuitive, but people are exposed to their fears such that they are continuously desensitized from having those thoughts come into their mind. And apart from the therapy, there are also medications, just depending on the severity and the choice of the person experiencing these symptoms. So there are medications that can help with the anxiety. They're usually higher doses than usual of what we call anti-anxiety medications, which sometimes double as antidepressants. So those are the ways that we treat OCD. So it's very treatable, although I must add the caveat that there is a possibility that it recurs, and it could recur under a very stressful condition. So you might be wondering, how can I reduce the chances of developing OCD? For many people, it's not really something that is within one's power. However, things like maintaining a peaceful environment, reducing stress, generally looking after your mental health. It's not just winging it. You know how we actively take veggies, drink water, put in the 10,000 steps every day, go to the gym? Those are the same ways that we can invest in our own mental health. It means that we can take out time to meditate, we can take out time to be in tune with ourselves, in tune with our environment, look around, try to be in sync with yourself and your inner self. Practice things that give you joy, gratitude, and if you find yourself having any of these thoughts, you can always counteract them by opposite words. For example, you have thoughts of maybe things will be contaminated. You could say, oh, this would not be contaminated, and also not to feed the OCD. What do I mean by feeding the OCD? It means that when people feel that, for example, something is contaminated, instead of knowing that, okay, this is just my thoughts and it's just something that keeps coming to my mind, they try to undo it. So it's that action that further reinforces the behavior. So the point is that you can try as much as possible, especially when it is still mild, to not do those compulsive behaviors or habits. However, I understand that this condition can be so difficult to manage. People get very distressed by it. Should that occur or should that be the situation with you, it's time to speak to a mental health specialist. So if you've ever felt any of the symptoms or you know anyone that might be experiencing these symptoms, please ask them to contact the mental health services in their local areas, and it is treatable, remember. So next time, before you say that you have OCD, think about it. Is it just the traits of the personality or is it the disorder? If you have any questions, I'm waiting in the chat box as usual. See you later, guys. Thank you.